Have you ever looked back and felt like your life was written by someone else? A story where every chapter seemed to confirm a single truth. You were born to lose. The plans that crumbled before they even began. The opportunities that slipped through your fingers like sand. The words of discouragement that echoed in your mind like a sentence. You tried to change the script. You forced, struggled, strived to exhaustion. But it was like trying to row against an overwhelming current. The feeling was of sitting at the wrong table in a game where the deck was always stacked against you. Every loss, every failure, every debt, every relationship that fell apart, every deferred dream, all of it was meticulously recorded in a great ledger. And there was an accuser, a relentless voice, whether internal or external, that pointed to those records and said, "See, the proof is right here. This is what you are." That was the reality you accepted. The table was colossal, imposing, and you, on the weaker side, facing a narrative of failure that seemed to have divine authority. Until something happened, something that was not a negotiation, not a plea, not an effort of your own. It was an intervention by a higher authority. And with a single gesture, the table was overturned. Everything that had been piled up against you, the accusations, the evidence, the emotional and material debts, was scattered across the floor in complete disorder. The game was over. The rules you knew were nullified, and a new decree echoed in the dimensions of your existence. Everything that worked for your downfall now begins to operate for your ascension. This is not positive thinking. It is not cheap self-help. It is a concrete reversal of reality. And the first target of this turnaround is precisely what holds you back the most: shame. That thing you hide, that episode from the past that makes your face burn just to remember, that choice you would swear to erase if you could. Shame is more than a feeling. It is a prison. It makes you lower your voice, refuse invitations, sabotage opportunities because you believe you are not worthy. The guilt you carry is not attention. You need to prepare now. I put together an exclusive resource for those who feel set apart for something greater, but live surrounded by noise, distractions, and mental overload. This is a 30-day journey that will transform your life. A guided path to armor your mind and prepare for what's coming with daily practices of focus, boundaries, and discipline. Stop negotiating with the noise. Learn to spot distractions before they control you, and strengthen your mind. Also available in an immersive audio version. Over 10 Zuru readers have already transformed their lives through the 30-day journey. Thousands of people have already started this transformation. People like you who are tired of living in the fog. Ordinary people who decided to stop accepting mental chaos. Take advantage of this limited time offer only this month. Access your link just below in the pinned comment. Just a weight on your back. It is a filter that distorts how you see the world and how you believe the world sees you. Spirituality and psychology converge here. Studies on emotional trauma show that memories laden with shame create neural patterns of self-punishment. Your brain, seeking to protect you from re-exposure, begins to avoid any situation that recalls that original pain. You withdraw, you hide, you accept less. And there lies the trap. What should be a protection mechanism becomes the very cell. The premise carries a deep spiritual truth that dialogues with this science. The divine intervention does not come to simply forgive and forget. It comes to transform. The decree that the table has been overturned means the source of your shame is being reassigned. What humiliated you, what you tried to bury, is being extracted from the field of condemnation and transferred to the field of testimony. Imagine a rotten foundation being removed, and in the same place a solid and honorable cornerstone being laid. The promised double honor is this: you will not only be freed from the weight, But the very story that was your shame will become the basis of your credibility, your empathy, your authority to speak about restoration. Think of someone who overcame an addiction. The experience of addiction itself is destructive and shame-laden. But when transformed, it becomes the foundation for that person to help others find their way back. The pain, processed and redeemed, generates an unmatched power of connection. This is not glamorizing suffering. It is recognizing a spiritual principle of resurrection. What was meant to kill you becomes evidence that you are alive. And when you stop hiding that story, something magical happens. The mental energy you spent keeping it hidden, managing the fear of being discovered, is released. Neuroscience speaks of the cognitive load of secrecy. Keeping a shameful secret requires constant mental effort, draining resources that could be used for creativity, focus, and planning. The release of this burden is not metaphorical, it is physiological. The solution begins here, at the most sensitive point. Instead of trying to erase the past, you are invited to reconsider its meaning in the light of the new decree. The table has turned, the sentence has been annulled. Now that story is no longer a file of accusation in the heavens. It is a file of grace. The first practical step is an internal review. Mentally, take that record of shame and instead of reading it as a list of mistakes, read it as a draft of a testimony. How did this experience make you more resilient? How did it give you discernment to avoid certain paths? How can it today allow you to reach out to someone who is in the same dark place you once were? This is not an easy or quick task. It is a process of internal rewriting, aligned with the new decreed narrative. And as you do this, you realize guilt loses its strength. It does not vanish overnight, but it stops being the director of the play of your life. It becomes a supporting character in a much larger story. And then the reversal hits the second great pillar of oppression: scarcity, the feeling of tightness that doesn't go away. The paycheck that's gone before the month ends, the debt that seems to reproduce, the anxiety of opening the bank statement. You work, strive, do overtime, try side jobs, but the feeling is of trying to wipe ice dry. The logic of the world is clear. You have a market value, determined by your education, your experience, your network. Provision is limited by economic cycles, inflation, competition. It is a zero-sum equation. For someone to win, another has to lose. And you feel constantly on the losing side of the equation. Traditional spirituality often falls into the trap of spiritualizing this logic, as if God were a celestial bank manager who only releases resources if you have enough faith or give the right tithe. This places the weight of provision back on your shoulders, just with different vocabulary. The premise we have received radically breaks with this. It says that divine provision does not follow the logic of the market or your salary. It flows from an inexhaustible wealth. Notice the difference. It is not about you deserving more. It is about the source being different. The table of the scarcity game has also been overturned. The rules of supply and demand that kept you in a cycle of lack have been overruled. This has an interesting scientific parallel in the theory of abundance versus scarcity mindset. Psychologists like Eldar Shafir have shown that chronic worry about lack drastically reduces cognitive capacity. The mind under scarcity stress becomes so focused on the immediate problem that it loses the ability to plan long-term, to see lateral opportunities, to be creative. It is a vicious cycle. Lack generates a mindset of lack, which in turn perpetuates lack. The spiritual reversal breaks this cycle at the root. When the decree declares that unexpected sources will begin to open, it is speaking of a reconfiguration of your field of possibility. Your mind, freed from the panic of scarcity, begins to operate in a state of greater openness and creativity. You begin to see connections that were previously hidden by the fog of anxiety. A forgotten skill, becomes a valued service. A casual contact transforms into a strategic partnership, an unexpected refund, a simple idea that solves a common problem. These are the unexpected sources. They were always there, but your perception, tuned to the frequency of lack, did not register them. The practical solution here is a dual movement. Internalize the new rule and act from it. To internalize means daily, to remind yourself that you are no longer bound to the economy of the old table. Your provision is not limited by your financial history or your current job title. It flows from an inexhaustible source of creativity, connection, and opportunity. This calms the nervous system, reduces cortisol, and a calmer mind is a mind more capable of identifying and seizing opportunities. The second movement is action guided by this new mindset. Instead of chasing any source of income out of desperation, you begin to ask, what unique talent can I offer the world? What problem can I solve with what I already have? You begin to invest time in cultivating your skills, expanding your knowledge, building genuine relationships, not by calculation, but by generosity. Prosperity, in this new economy, often arrives as a byproduct of alignment with purpose, and not as the fruit of an anguished obsession with money. What seemed lost, time, resources, unsuccessful investments, begins to be returned in multiplied forms. Not necessarily in cash, but in wisdom, in open doors, in peace to manage what you have. The overturning of the scarcity table is, first and foremost, a liberation from the scarcity mindset. But there is a third element, perhaps the most delicate, the adversaries. We are not necessarily talking about people with cloak and dagger. We are talking about those forces, circumstances, or even individuals who, consciously or unconsciously, positioned themselves against your progress. People who spread gossip, who rooted for your failure, who took advantage of your vulnerability, who placed obstacles in your path out of envy, competition, or simple malice. Human justice is flawed. Often those who act in bad faith walk away unscathed, prosper, and you are left with a feeling of powerlessness and resentment. Holding on to this bitterness is a poison. Planning revenge is to descend to the same level and become even more trapped in the old game. The promise of the premise is powerful and specific. Every trap they set for you will turn back on them. Their strategy will be exposed, and the intended harm will be converted into a public testimony of your deliverance. This speaks of a spiritual principle of cause and effect, a moral return of the energy put into the world. Social psychology studies the phenomenon of the self-destruction of manipulative strategies. Lies, to be sustained, require an increasingly complex web of new lies until the structure collapses under its own weight. The dishonest person sooner or later gets tangled in their own webs. What spirituality adds is the dimension of timing and higher purpose. The exposure and reversal do not happen to feed your ego or your thirst to see the other suffer. They happen as a public testimony, so that it becomes clear there was an intervention in your favor, so that your story of restoration is complete, showing that even the oppositions were incorporated and transformed into evidence of the new path. The solution here is profoundly counterintuitive. It requires you to release control over justice. You stop watching the other person's life, waiting for their day of downfall. Instead, you concentrate your energy on living well in your new reality, within the new rules. You practice forgiveness, not as a lukewarm feeling, but as a decision to not let resentment dictate your actions or occupy space in your mind. Forgiveness is, in truth, an act of cognitive self-preservation. When you release the need for payback, you disarm the emotional traps that were still active within you, and then something curious begins to happen. As you move forward, focusing on your own transformation, the inconsistencies of those who opposed you begin to surface naturally. Truth has an intrinsic strength. The peace you attain becomes a stark contrast to their turmoil, and the people around you start to see the difference. The exposure is often simply this contrast becoming obvious to everyone. Ill intent converts into testimony when people look at you, who were the target, and see not a destroyed, bitter person, but someone at peace, thriving. They ask themselves, how did he overcome that? How is she well after all that was done? And there lies your testimony. Divine justice often operates through the natural law of consequences and the restorative grace that places you on ground so high that the attacks of the past simply can no longer reach you. You don't need to tear anyone down. The simple act of you rising up, healed and prosperous, at the new table is already the most eloquent verdict on the old game. This journey on three fronts, shame transformed into honor, scarcity reversed into creative provision, opposition converted into testimony, is not linear. There will be days when the accuser's voice will try to whisper, days when the bank statement seems to contradict the promise, days when the memory of a betrayal will ache. The difference now is that you know these are relics of the old game, echoes of a reality that was officially concluded. Your task is to align yourself cognitively and spiritually with the new reality. How is that done? Through the renewal of the mind. This means choosing deliberately to feed thoughts that are in agreement with the new decree. When shame arises, instead of diving into it, you acknowledge it and declare, "This was transformed into testimony." When the fear of lack tightens its grip, you breathe and affirm, "My provision comes from an inexhaustible source." But when resentment appears, you release it and say, "My peace is my testimony." This is not magical thinking. It is a neural reprogramming based on a deep spiritual belief. The science of neuroplasticity tells us that neural pathways strengthen with use. Every time you choose the new thought over the old, you are literally forging a new pathway in your brain, making the new mindset more automatic and accessible. The final invitation is for you to take your place at the new table. The table has been turned. The game is over. You no longer need to play with the marked cards of guilt, lack, and revenge. Your past story, with all its difficult chapters, is being gathered from the floor of disorder and reorganized as the foundation of something solid and honorable. Your provision is no longer limited to the obvious, worn-out channels. Your old battles are being resolved by a higher justice, which transforms traps into stepping stones. You were chosen not for an easy life, but for a redeemed life, where everything that was used against you now begins to work in your favor. This is the ultimate reversal, the time to live from this truth. Attention, you need to prepare now. I put together an exclusive resource for those who feel set apart for something greater, but live surrounded by noise, distractions, and mental overload. This is a 30-day journey that will transform your life. A guided path to armor your mind and prepare for what's coming with daily practices of focus, boundaries, and discipline. Stop negotiating with the noise. Learn to spot distractions before they control you, and strengthen your mind. Also available in an immersive audio version. Over 10 Zuzazara readers have already transformed their lives through the 30-day journey. Thousands of people have already started this transformation. People like you who are tired of living in the fog. Ordinary people who decided to stop accepting mental chaos. Take advantage of this limited time offer only this month. Access your link just below in the pinned comment.